I'm Hamish Reed.
And I'm Sohial Farzam. We got a question this week from Fiona. And Fiona asks, I normally use liver 14 for local chest pain, but I feel there has to be more to this point, being the front move point. What do you guys use it for?
Yeah, great question, Fiona, and there is a lot more to liver 14 than most people think or realise, and you have actually tapped into one of our favourite points on the body. We've got our list of favourites, but liver 14 is certainly up there. Now, obviously, it's in the 6th intercostal space, forceful and lateral to the midline, okay, and it's called Chi Men, which is translated loosely as Gate of Hope. There are a few other sort of translations, and this is what I really love this point for. Front move of the liver. Now, obviously, we know the front move point, the word move means to gather or collect. So it's one of the first places that chi gathers when there's a pending problem with the organ. So for things like anger, frustration, resentment that's starting to come up with any kind of digestive disorders, we can needle this point as the front mood point. Remember, the mood points are alarm points, so they will warn the body or the practitioner of a symptom or an underlying pathology before it actually rears its head. So they're great to do that. Why I really like this point, and Sohial's going to expand on this too, is for its notion that it's the gate of hope. Now, the liver is the manager of the body. It controls the way chi moves. Every organ has a different movement of chi. The lungs and large intestine go down. The spleen goes upwards. The liver goes upwards and outwards. But it's the liver's job to make sure that the organ's doing the right thing as the manager. So it's always saying, right, lungs, you go down. Spleen, you do your thing now. Large intestine, you expel. So if the liver's not performing well, all the other chi is going to go into disarray. So it's like the CEO of a company. And if the CEO is not right, then the workers aren't going to do their thing, basically. So when we talk about gate of hope, now we know that the first thing to happen, one of the first places that liver chi stagnates is in the chest. And one of the first signs and symptoms that happen when the liver chi stagnates is that melancholia. And so it's not quite depression, but it's when you're melancholy. So you feel a little bit down, and someone might say, oh, so how are you okay today, mate? You seem a little bit down. You're like, oh, look, I am, but I don't really know why. But you might listen to some music, watch some comedy, go on a run, play with your pet, and then you feel good. But if that's allowed to continue, then you might go into that state of depression. Now, depression basically is a state of hopelessness. So this is where that point, oh, what's the point? I don't want to get out of bed and do all that. So this is why I love this point, gate of hope. By needling this point, it will restore that hope and inspiration in, and move that chi and bring you out of that state.
Yeah, that's a good analogy actually. Look, one of the things I want to talk about with liver 14, which in fact is actually also one of my favourite points as we discussed, liver 14, the name of the point, gate of hope, is actually also, it's got a strong connection to another point made in the sort of ancient Chinese philosophy, which is also the gate of completion. So being the last point on the channel, it's also the gate of completion before the channel sort of moves in through the diaphragm and into the lungs. Now, the little movement through the diaphragm into the lungs is really significant to me personally, because you see, when people get asthma, especially when asthma is sort of exacerbated by stress and they get like an asthma attack, that's because obviously now the liver, which obviously handles stress, is now affecting the diaphragm. So what happens is the diaphragm goes into a contraction and actually starts to make the breathing, the inspiration, the expiration, obviously a lot more difficult for the patient. So one of the things I use it for is to really help people overcome asthma, especially if it's stress induced. But the gate of completion, in terms of also the gate of hope, is that sometimes in life what we do is we have actually dysfunctional hope. So it's like one thing to give you hope, the point does actually inspire you to give you hope, but also some people sort of get stagnated, and what they do is they procrastinate. And one of the things that we've talked about in other videos is the fact that when the liver chi stagnates, people sort of become, Hamish mentioned before about resignation, they get melancholic and so on, but also people go into what's called a state of procrastination. And procrastination, the psychology of procrastination really means to give yourself and your body a step. So it's like an instruction from the body to telling you to take the next step. And that's the great thing about the liver, especially the mood point, because it actually moves the liver energy, which means it moves you psycho-emotionally as well. So once it moves you, the channel goes through the diaphragm and into the chest, where it sort of taps into the lung energy. Now, one small aspect between the difference between the liver and the lung, or the wood and the metal, is that the lungs is more about inspiration, where the The liver is more about aspiration. So there's a bit of a fine difference, because the aspiration is because of the fact the liver is associated with our creativity, and it's associated with our artistic drive. So it's our ability to sort of move forward and tackle life and become creative and become leaders. So when the liver energy is not going through the diaphragm and into the lungs, so you don't get inspired, like Amy said before, it sort of resigns, so it goes down again. So we need the liver energy to move up, because as it goes into the lung, but also in the heart with the 5 element cycle, it also goes into the brain, so you can have good cognition, so you can have clarity on your thoughts, you can plan life, and then obviously you with the gallbladder, you can make decisions. So liver 14 is fantastic to move someone in a state where they're procrastinating. It moves them through the procrastination, so they become inspired and have aspirations to go after the things that mean a lot to them.
Yeah, can I just add something there? It's a really interesting point there, Sohial, and what you said about aspirations, that the liver chi, think of the wood element. The liver chi moves upwards and outwards in the same way that wood grows, upwards and outwards.
Exactly.
So when you talk about aspirations, it's like upwards and outwards, reaching for the stars, wanting to better ourselves and further ourselves. So that's the aspiration and inspiration and that kind of thing. The other thing, which is, I suppose it's a topic for another day, but very quickly, combining liver 14 with gallbladder 24, which is both the front mood points, but we've got the gate of hope, we've got gallbladder 24, Ryu, the sun and moon, which is the main decision-making point. So I find this a really good combination to liver 14 to restore aspiration and aspiration and inspiration, but then gallbladder 24, taking that and making those decisions as clear as the sun and moon, so you can act on them as well.
Yeah, we've definitely got that covered in a future episode. We're going to be talking a lot about gallbladder and liver associations. And one more thing I want to come back to before we finish up is when I said the gate of completion. So the gate of completion basically means that most people who are sort of held back by their past, so like maybe traumatic past experiences, emotional experience from the past that they feel was so traumatic that they can't move forward in life. So liver 14 allows you to sort of let go of the past by propelling the energy of the liver forward. So if you look at the 5 element cycle, the liver basically mediates the communication between the kidney and the heart. So the liver sort of just sort of propels that momentum so that the psychology evolves, which means you evolve and move away from your painful past so that you can go and tackle the future. So these are some really important attributes. Now there's also another thing we're going to be talking about in future episodes with the association of liver 14 and also lung 1, and its association with what's called the 4 gates and also the thoracic gates, which we'll be talking about as well. So keep your eye out on that one. But ultimately, liver 14 is one of our favorite points. It was a great question, so we thank you for that, and hopefully the video has given you more insight as to what the point does.
Cheers.